Ladies and gentlemen, training camp is here. Welcome back to football. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Some good injury updates, some a little concerning. Grossi, and the first practice for this upcoming season is in the books. Training camp has officially started. Bicycles are being ridden to and from the Don Hutson Center, and all is well. Before we jump into any of the injury updates, I want to do a big shout and thank you to some brand new Patreon members. First, we got Daniel Haygood and Noah Williams. A big shout out and thank you to you both. Now, there's a lot that has happened this week. For example, you have Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst getting extended, which Mark Murphy was kind of like, I don't really know if I want to say this, but heavily implied that that was the case. So they got extended to some nice new contracts, which in my opinion are well deserved. On top of that, we talked about David Bakhtiari this past Saturday going on the PUP list. We had Sammy Watkins finding himself on the inactive list yesterday. And so today you had Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur speak to the press, and they kind of were able to give some tidbits and more importantly, some injury updates on some of these players. So let's jump into the biggest one first and talk about our all-pro left tackle, David Bakhtiari. As I did the video on Monday, David Bakhtiari was placed on the PUP list on Saturday. Again, a different PUP list than it is for the season. There's no amount of games that he has to be out. They can actually take him off whenever they want. You saw this, for example, looking at the New Orleans Saints. Mike Thomas was on the PUP list, and he was taken off that list today, and he was out running routes and catching balls. But it was confirmed that David Bakhtiari underwent yet another procedure on his knee during this offseason. This makes the count at least 3 since tearing his ACL on December 31st of 2020. And that is the reason why he is on the PUP list to start camp. It was said that this was much more than just an ACL injury. And if you read that and you see the tidbits, you're like, oh man, that's really, really bad. And yes, that's obviously some cause for concern. However, all the news that came after that, I'm pretty happy about. They talked about being cautiously optimistic with Bakhtiari, but even further, Goody said that he has no concerns that not only will Bakhtiari play again and play for the Packers, but he will be able to resume his career at an all-pro level. And to follow up on that even more, David Bakhtiari was asked about his knee, and he actually said that it felt normal. And this is the first time that it's felt normal since he tore his ACL. So while, of course, nothing's set in stone, the fact that you're hearing it from David Bakhtiari himself saying that he feels good, and on top of that, the lack of concern from Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst, at least what they're saying, that's all good news, and hopefully we'll see him on the field sooner rather than later. In addition, Goody gave some updates to Sammy Watkins, saying that he should not miss too much time, and that he was on the list for a, quote, very short time, and that they should see Sammy Watkins very soon. So it seems like that there is not a lot of concern over that, so that is definitely a good thing. In addition, Christian Watson also was on the PUP list from last week, and a lot of people were wondering why. It was confirmed today that it was a minor knee surgery. Apparently there was a discussion with Christian Watson on if he wanted to just kind of toughen it out, but they decided to just get it out of the way, get it done now. And yes, he is going to miss some training camp, but they don't see it being a long-term issue. Matt LaFleur talked about how it is so important to get those reps, especially those full speed reps during the preseason, during camp, and unfortunately Christian Watson is going to have to catch up. Matt LaFleur spoke about how he was impressed with how Christian Watson was back in the offseason and in OTAs, of just being able to pick things up quickly. So yes, this hurts that he's going to miss some of that chemistry building with Aaron Rodgers, but it's some great news that this is just a short-term issue, and they're looking forward to seeing him on the field. And in addition, you saw Dean Lowry and Patrick Taylor taken off the PUP list, so again, that's good news. Guys are getting healthy. So overall, I would say that this is pretty solid news. Christian Watson, will kind of keep an eye on that, but there doesn't seem to be a ton of concern from the Packers brass that this is going to be a long-term issue. Dave Bakhtiari, there's kind of a sense of optimism after today, and Sammy Watkins should be on the field sooner rather than later. One final note talking about wide receivers, Goody actually said that they were not really interested in bringing in another veteran wide receiver, that they were happy with the group that they have, so don't expect them to go out and get anybody like maybe potentially an OBJ, or at least that's what they're talking about. We'll kind of see see what they have during camp. We're going to see guys like Romeo Doubs get a lot of opportunities and a lot of snaps. Juwan Winfrey was already tearing it up in training camp like he usually does. So it'll be exciting to see kind of how things progress and see if Goody kind of changes his mind as training camp and the preseason rolls on. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you feel about the news today? Football is back, ladies and gentlemen, and I could not be happier. But let me know. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or TomGrossiComedy, all social media you see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course, YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack, go.